I have one question I'd really like to get answer for. What will happen to the head of Russia's central bank, Elvira Nabiulina, soon? Will she get arrested, charged with treason, and sentenced to a prison term? Or, worse, will she fall out of the window? I want to know what will happen to the head of Russia's central bank. Because Elvira Nabiulina is in a very tight spot right now. She is under a massive attack from Russia's most powerful man. No, that's not Vladimir Putin. From the guy who is the real power in Russia, who owns Russia's military-industrial complex. Let's talk of the war of Russia's most powerful political clans. That's just been declared. Howdy, howdy, friends. My name is Konstantin. Welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. As usual, you will not find here lies, propaganda, or BS. Instead, you will find here truth, common sense, and logic, and some emotions, because I am a human being after all. Unusual Russian. This is going to be a very interesting stream today. You know, we've got to dig deep to learn these things. If you want to learn on your own, it's going to take you a very long time, because today is one of those news that and topics that you will not find anywhere in the media, not even in the Russian media, let alone Western media. You've got to dig deep to learn these things. What I'm doing right now is I'm making you insiders of Russian political landscape. You are getting the cutting edge, so to speak. So do me a favor, like this video right now in advance, because you will like it, I guarantee. Thank you for liking. The only thing Vladimir Putin is afraid of is high inflation. In Russia, people feel increase in inflation instantly. It affects them directly. Prices for food and for everything else, for that matter, go up. And that makes people angry. And the prices, if the prices are too high, people can have enough. They can get together and demand changes. The possibility of that happening is there. The probability of that happening is low, but at least there's a possibility. And it looks like right now in Russia, that's the only possibility of something happening to Putin's absolute power, except for natural causes, of course. That's the only threat to his power. As far as I understand, that's the only thing Putin is afraid right now. People protesting. And Putin has been trying to keep the inflation low for the last 13 months, 2.5 years of this madness that is happening in Russia. Of course, he isn't doing it himself. I doubt Vladimir Putin knows much about how economy works, but he has a very smart person to help him. The person is Elvira Nabiulina, the head of Russia's central bank. Well, that name you probably heard many times. Former Minister of Economic Development of Russian Federation and later Putin's economic aide. Nabiulina was made the head of the central bank in June of 2013, 11 years ago. She is very smart and she is very good at what she does. She understood immediately what Vladimir Putin got Russia into and got its economy into when first rockets flew to Ukraine. She requested a meeting with Vladimir Putin and asked for resignation. You know, I can picture that scene in my head. Vladimir Vladimirovich, I don't want to take part in this crime. I want to resign. Oh, Elvira, I will make you an offer that you will not be able to refuse. Now, I don't know what that offer could have been. Perhaps a criminal case template shown to Nabiulina with a possible prison term, or a horse's head in her bedroom. I don't know. I can only guess. But I know for sure that Elvira Nabiulina did not refuse Putin's offer. On March 21st, 2022, Russian president reappointed Nabiulina the head of the central bank for another term. And Vladimir Putin gave Nabiulina an order to keep the inflation in Russia low, because high inflation is a threat to Putin's power. Well, at least at early stages of the war, it was a threat. And I think at early stages, he was afraid of people protesting due to high inflation. Right now, I'm not even sure that he is afraid, perhaps concerned. Now, Elvira has done a brilliant job to keep the inflation low in Russia. Her job was not in the interest of Russian people. No. But she has been keeping Russian economy afloat. And it's been able to continue beefing up Russian military. It was made Russian economy strong enough to continue waging the war on Ukraine and to keep Vladimir Putin in power. So she's been doing everything that Putin has asked her. And she has brilliantly done that job. Well, what has she done exactly? She eliminated panic among Russians and panic in the financial market of Russia. And that was panic in February, in March, when Russia attacked. I remember quite clearly. People were withdrawing money from the banks, and Russian ruble was devaluing at a catastrophic speed, and everyone wanted to exchange rubles into dollars. I lived through that panic. I remember that. So she took care of it brilliantly by applying certain policies, regulating and limiting American dollar outflow from Russian banks, and she kept inflation under control by manipulating the key interest rate, shifting it up and down and up again over 30 months. But you know what? The central bank policies are not the cure for the economy. The fundamental problems must be solved to actually keep the economy afloat. In my live streams, I have talked of the problems, fundamental problems, numerous times. It's military expenses skyrocketing, export revenues dropping to the floor, millions of people leaving the country and the workforce, hundreds of thousands of people killed and injured, the international sanctions of every single possible kind. I call this situation economic tsunami, and it's really a perfect economic storm, not just economic, but also economic storm that is spinning above Russia. The central bank can patch the facade of Russian economy up. It can sugarcoat Russian economy for some time. It can prolong the agony, so to speak, but it cannot fix the fundamental problems. And the central bank was patching up the economy up for quite some time, keeping the inflation low, just as Putin ordered. But as economic situation was getting worse, the central bank was using stronger and stronger drug. Well, the same drug of a stronger dosage. Nabiulina's drug, and she's been administering it to Russian economy, is the key interest rate. Any drug has side effects, and the key interest rate also has a side effect, a bad one, a big one. When you increase the key interest rate, you dry up the economy of money. More money is kept at bank deposits. if the interest is high, obviously. But you also slow the economy down. Less money means less spendings, less investments, less development, less growth. Plain and simple. This is, as simple as 1, 2, 3. Your economy goes down, but your inflation is low. At the same time, this happens simultaneously. And remember, Putin ordering Nabiulina to keep the inflation low, she was doing a brilliant job. She was keeping the inflation low brilliantly by raising the key interest rate from 7.5% in July of last year, 2023, to 21% now in October and November of 2024. The key interest rate of 21% means that mortgages start at around 27% of annual interest rate, and commercial loans start at 32% annual interest rate. And how can you do business borrowing at 32%? Please tell me in the comments down below after the end of the stream. Have you ever been forced to borrow at 32%? What if you were forced to borrow at 30%? What would happen to your business? Is it an option for you? Would you consider doing that? Anyway, I'd love to hear your feedback, your opinions in the comments down below, please. So, Nabiulina was keeping the inflation as low as she could, as low as possible. But all around her, there have been incredibly terrible economic conditions. At the same time, her keeping the key interest rate up and inflation low has been killing Russian economy simultaneously. And the leader of a very powerful clan, Russian political clan, Sergei Chemezov, finally said enough. He addressed the upper house of the Russian parliament on October 23rd, directly blaming the central bank, read Elvira Nabiulina, in slowing down Russian economy and making it very difficult to operate for Russian manufacturers, read Russian military-industrial complex. But who is Sergei Chemezov? He's quite a guy. Before I tell you, I would like to take a sip of this wonderful English breakfast tea and take this opportunity to thank you again, those of you who have supported me by watching my videos and live streams, by participating in live stream chats, by sending words of encouragement, nice words, leaving nice comments, praying for me and sending love. Thank you so very much for those of you who have bought me coffees at buymeacoffee.com, who became patrons of Inside Russia at patreon.com, and who have sent funds directly to PayPal. Thank you so much. I am still demonetized by Google, but you have my word that monetized or demonetized, sick, or healthy, whatever, I will show up here in front of the camera every single day to give you the latest from Russia. I think that the entire world needs to know what is happening in the country, how it is demising, and how it can influence the world. So thank you very much for all your support, for all your love. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Now let's get back to the message. Who is Sergei Chemezov, and why? How come he's the head of a powerful, mighty powerful clan in Russia? Now, Chemezov is a mighty powerful guy. He is the head of Rostech, the group of companies, hundreds of companies, controlling 80% of Russia's entire military-industrial complex. Ballistic and cruise missiles, bombs, guns, tanks, planes, ammunition, armor, anything that is supplied to the Russian armed forces right now is Rostech. Its annual revenue just reached over 3 trillion rubles. That's a 7% of country's entire GDP. In my opinion, Sergei Chemezov is the most powerful man in Russia because he controls the military-industrial complex. He ensures that Putin can continue the war with Ukraine. And without the war, Putin is toast. So Chemezov is holding this key in his hands. That's what makes him so powerful. Imagine the magnitude of his power. How did 80% of Russia's military-industrial complex, 7% of Russia's GDP, hundreds of large, small, and huge manufacturers, the tanks, T-90, the planes, Su-29, Su-35, MiG-31, whatever, all the planes, military planes Russia is producing, the air defense systems, S-300, S-400, that's Rostech. That is Chemezov. He is the sole, well, I can't say the owner, he's not the owner, but he's the man who controls 100% of Rostech. Who is the guy? How did Chemezov get there? Is he a new 72-year-old man on the block, perhaps? No. Sergei Chemezov has been in the Russian business and political landscape forever, or mostly in business landscape. Sergei Chemezov is a former KGB spy, an operative stationed in the mid-80s in East Germany. His best friend at the Russian base was the guy named Vladimir Putin. They were the best friends, their wives were girlfriends, they literally lived right next to each other, their doors faced each other, doors of their apartments. And they spent all their free time and celebrations, family celebrations, together. The best friends. Now you understand who Chemezov is. One of Putin's most trusted people. He controls Rostech, again, 80% of Russia's military-industrial complex. He has his people placed over Russian government and Russian parliament. The key people are Denis Manturov, first vice prime minister of Russia, responsible for the entire manufacturing sector. A protege and a good friend of Chemezov, Alexei Alyoshin, the head of Rostechnadzor, Russia's watchdog agency over everyone. Vladimir Artyakov, a former governor and the head of Rostechnology. That's state-owned holding company responsible for state financing of the military-industrial complex. Chemezov is powerful by himself, and he surrounded himself by very powerful places in high seats. And don't forget the Chemezov's friend, the president of Russia, Vladimir Putin. Chemezov executed the strike on Nabiulina by blaming her of slowing down the economy. And of course, he talked about slowing down the entire industrial sector of Russian economy, but he really meant the military-industrial complex. And he's spoken about what it means for Russian armed forces, for the war in Ukraine, and so forth. That happened on the 23rd of October. And Nabiulina answered by making a public statement saying that she was doing a very right job of raising the key interest rate to keep the inflation low. And then 2 days after Chemizov spoke, she increased the key interest rate by 2 points to 21%. That is the current level right now. And that was a shot fired back at Chemizov. A message: I can do as I wish. I don't listen to you, and I have my own agenda, and you with your military-industrial complex can go to hell. And that was the declaration of war. This is the biggest conflict in Russia's power landscape in the recent times. For the first time, it has gone public. All other conflicts that we didn't really witness any conflicts. We just saw the signs of them. But they were far behind the curtains. Okay, and then they were never taken public. This is taken public because this is what has happened ever since in the last 4 weeks. Chemizov and his people have been publicly firing shots at Nabiulina. Shots by giving interviews, by criticizing the policies of the central bank, the criticizing the approach it has taken to the Russian economy. And lots of minions of Chemizov have been doing it in a different way. You know, he's used the tactics of shooting from different directions at different calibers. And the latest shot, and that's a big one, Chemizov made another public statement. And he's not a public person in general, but he has been making public statements, okay? Again, he's blaming Nabiulina in slowing down the Russian economy. And now he kind of puts out the ultimatum. Either you start lowering the key interest rate and providing us with more money, or we go bankrupt. And then you can do anything you want in Ukraine, and you obviously will lose. So that's the ultimatum. It's out there, and the interview came out today. Well, a statement, really. In the central bank, what has the central bank done? Well, obviously, Nabiulina increased the key interest rate to 21%, and she made a public statement that she was going to, she's going to increase the key interest rate if the inflation does not slow down in late December, even more. So that's a direct shot at Chemizov, okay? And judge for yourself what has happened since. In October, Ksenia Yudaeva, a brilliant economist, probably one of the best Russia has. She studied in Russia. She graduated from Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and she graduated from other universities too. Brilliant. And she has been a friend and right-hand partner of Elvira Nabiulina for years and years. She was the brains and hands behind Nabiulina. She was the person who was keeping everything together, you know, coming up with policies. And she was the hands-down lady, so to speak. You know, she left Russia. She left central bank. A huge blow to Elvira Nabiulina. Absolutely huge blow. She came to become the representative of Russia in the International Monetary Fund. 5 days ago, First Deputy Olga Skorobogatova also left Russia's central bank. Well, you know, some might say, well, they quit. They resigned, you know, but you don't. When you're part of a team of Elvira Nabiulina, you do not resign at your own wish. The chances are those people were forced to resign due to some actions, threats, or deals made that we don't know of. Also, two more key people from the central bank, the deputy and the head of the department, resigned or quit, left Russia's central bank. Elvira Nabiulina have been left, has been dealt a huge blow. People who she's been considering, her teammates have left. And most likely they have left forcefully. Elvira Nabiulina is under tremendous stress right now. Future of Russian economy is being decided right now as we speak. Either Nabiulina stays in her position and the key interest rate remains high, and whatever she's been doing, she will continue to be doing, or she goes and the key rate, she's replaced by someone who is much softer than Elvira Nabiulina, okay? And someone special who is softer. And the key rate will start getting down, will start go lower and lower. And in this case, the inflation starts galloping. It's pretty bad right now, but wait until they start dropping the interest rate. We have seen that before. I personally have seen that before. I was a senior high, and I remember quite well this scenario. 1992. There were two clans, two groups, powerful groups, and they were fighting with each other. There was a group of economists led by Yegor Gaidar, and he was trying to basically build new economy, free economy. The USSR had just collapsed, and they needed to come up with something new, and they were trying to keep the inflation under control. And on the other hand, there was a group of large manufacturers, directors of huge factories and groups of companies, and low inflation was hurting them. The high interest rate was hurting them, and they wanted more money for their companies. And those two groups clashed, and the manufacturers won. As a result, we had what now is considered the worst inflation in Russian history, the galloping inflation, 1992, 1993. It was, just to let you know, my parents would get paid and they would rush to a store to buy something because a few days later, that amount of money on their hands could buy so many less products, so less goods, And the same kind of a decision, the same kind of fight, we're seeing it again. It's happening all over again in Russia. We are witnessing the war between the manufacturers, the Russia's military-industrial complex, and the central bank, the economists. And it is up to Putin to decide, and I'm pretty sure he's the one who makes the final decision. He will make that decision soon. Nabiulina's fate will be decided by the end of the year. Mark my words down. By the end of 2024, we will know Nabiulina stays or goes. I really want to know what happens to her. She has made a lot of enemies on the way. And she can be fired. Well, for us, she will just quit. Okay, she will resign. But in reality, she will be fired. She can be left alone, which I think this very unlikely. She could become a scapegoat for Putin, for others, and she's not very popular among Russian people. They don't like her. They think that the central bank is not working for Russia, but against Russia, because it has such unpopular policies for Russian people. And they don't understand that the Central Bank of Russia is working for Vladimir Putin, so he can keep his power for as long as possible. They think it's just against Russian people. Okay, they're wrong. Nabiulina is following the order. She's doing a job brilliantly. Just a question of what kind of job, what kind of goals she has. So she has a lot of enemies. She's very unpopular among Russian people, and she could be a perfect person to blame all Russian problems on. We fire Nabiulina, and a few weeks later, oh, you know what? Russian ruble has lost so much value. Whose fault? Elvira Nabiulina. Russian economy has slowed down. Whose fault? High interest rate. Whose fault is that? Elvira Nabiulina, and so forth. She could be charged with a crime, most likely treason. She could be sentenced to a prison term, or she simply could mysteriously fall out of the window. We will see soon. But no matter who wins, Nabiulina or Chemezov, central bank or the military-industrial complex, it doesn't matter, because Russia has gone too far. Russian economy is at the point of no return. It is at the situation called stagflation. That's when the economy is slowing down, going down, but the inflation is going up, and there's not much you can do. This is a very bad situation to be caught in, but that's where Nabiulina has brought Russia, well, not just Nabiulina, but the entire, Russian government, including Nabiulina, have brought Russia by starting the war on Ukraine, by keeping the inflation under control, by putting so much more money into Russian economy, by paying soldiers, Russian men, up to 5 million rubles for signing up to go and kill Ukrainians in Ukraine, for becoming pariah from the rest of the world, for, by getting placed so many international sanctions upon. Russia is at the point of no return. If they start lowering the interest rate, inflation will be galloping, but that will not help much to Russian, it will not help Russian manufacturers much. And if they keep raising the key interest rate to 23, 25, 26, and so forth, that's not going to keep the inflation low any longer, because the resources have been used up. But it definitely will slow down Russian economy. And Chemezov, in that case, would be right. Many companies would go bankrupt. So it's a lose-lose situation. Vladimir Putin has placed Russia by his decision into this situation. And there is a recipe. Of course there is. It can be fixed only by stopping the war, only by repenting, only by admitting what Russia has done, only by replacing Vladimir Putin, only by replacing his friends and installing new government in Russia, democratic, free government, only giving power, rights back to Russian people, only by making peace amends with Ukraine and the rest of the world, only becoming a part of international community again. That's going to take a long time and many, many efforts. That is the only recipe for revival of the country called Russia. I don't know anything else, any other recipe. That's the only one I know. And before I sign off, I would like to tell you that there will be lots of news coming out of Russia, and most of them will be bad. Today, Russian ruble continued landsliding, and now it's being traded at 107 rubles for American dollar. That is bad and huge. Russian ruble has lost 26% of its value in 3 months and 10% of its value in just 2 weeks. That is a huge blow for the economy. I cover such news every single day. I carefully select news, 9 news that I find important and matter. I put my commentaries and analysis, and I make such news available to patrons of Inside Russia. They are available at patreon.com. So if you want to stay on top of things in Russia, if you want to know everything what's going on every single day, but you don't know where to look for that, you know now. Sign up, become patron of Inside Russia, and patron, I always mix up these words, patron of Inside Russia at patreon.com, and you will become an expert on what's going on in Russia. Thank you so much. Carthago delenda est. I'll see you soon.